Thank you, Sally Ann. A man has been charged with murder in connection to the fatal stabbing of an FDNY EMT in what officials described as an unprovoked attack. Lieutenant Allison Russo-Elling, a 25-year veteran of the fire department, was on duty and getting food about half a block from her station in Astoria when she was attacked. Peter Zizopoulos is accused of stabbing her multiple times before running into his home on 41st Street near 20th Avenue and then barricading himself inside. Police say Zizopoulos may have a history of schizophrenia. The NYPD's hostage negotiating team eventually convinced him to come out, and he was taken into custody. He now faces charges of murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Mayor Adams spoke from the hospital shortly after Lieutenant Russo-Elling was pronounced dead.
All of our first responders, they are always on call. She was there for a reason, and no matter what the reason was, she should not have been murdered in this fashion. She was on duty, doing her job, saving the people of the city of New York.
Dozens of Russo-Elling's colleagues lined up last night to salute her as her body was transferred from Mount Sinai in Queens. She had been a long-time member of the department, a first responder, in fact, during the September 11th attacks, and had worked at multiple stations all across the city. Lewis Finley joins us now from EMS Station 49 in Astoria, where she worked, with more on her life of service to the city of New York. Lewis.
Hi, a couple hundred people showed up to the bunting ceremony to pay their respects for Allison Russo-Elling. People called her the mother hen. It was a very emotional day here, but we learned she is much more than a lieutenant. She leaves behind her mother and a daughter. Family, friends, and peers gathered outside Station 49 in Queens on Friday to remember 61-year-old Allison Russo-Elling.
She made sure that we were all okay.
On Thursday, Russo-Elling was stabbed to death a block away from her station.
And this event has cut deep into our souls and has rippled to the first responder communities across the nation. We are heartbroken, and we are very angry.
Friends remember the fallen EMS lieutenant as a kind person and someone who everyone loved. They also noted her bravery. A career that began in 1998, Russo-Elling started as an EMT. A few years later, in 2001, she faced one of the toughest calls, aiding in the rescue and recovery efforts at the World Trade Center. It was in 2016 when she became a lieutenant. Over the span of her career, she was cited multiple times for her bravery and life-saving work. She even worked the Dignitary Protection Unit and was assigned to Vice President Mike Pence on a visit. Her longtime friend Anthony Almagera says she was planning to retire at the beginning of the year.
Allison had to continue to work because she did not make enough money to be able to retire when she wanted to. She was 61 years old, still responding to 911 calls.
Almagera is also the vice president of Local 3621 EMS Officers Union. He says when she wasn't working in the city, she volunteered in Long Island where she lived as a paramedic. Russo-Elling would have celebrated 30 years of volunteer work in November.
She loved being a paramedic that much. She loved helping people that much. She wore her heart on her sleeve, would give you the shirt off her back, and she was there for me at a time that I was at my most vulnerable. She put her arm around me and said everything was going to be okay. Unfortunately, I didn't have that capability yesterday.
A job dedicated to serving people, Allison deserved to have a long, healthy retirement. She didn't deserve this.
Allison Russo was an amazing woman. She was a mother. She was a friend. She was a daughter. She was a civil servant who dedicated her life to caring for the people of this city.
Also, Annika, Governor Hochul has ordered flags to remain at half staff until after the lieutenant's funeral. Annika.
And we will wait for details on that as they become available. Lewis Finley, such a devastating story. Thank you for that report from Astoria. Moving on, an emergency declaration is in place for South Carolina as Hurricane Ian bears toward that state now. Ian strengthened to a hurricane again after leaving Florida and entering the Atlantic. It's expected to make landfall there later today. Its site set on the coast of South Carolina near Charleston. Forecasters are predicting that it will bring heavy winds and flooding. And officials in Florida assessing the damage and extent of destruction caused by Ian as it barrels toward the Carolinas now. At least 19 people have died in Florida, and search and rescue efforts are moving forward. The expectation from officials is that this storm will go down as the largest natural disaster in Florida's history. This is an aerial look at Fort Myers, which was one of the city's hardest hit by the powerful storm. Spectrum reporter Jason Lanning is there with more details.
We've been trying to make it to Fort Myers Beach now for the past couple of days. The roads are still blocked. Out of Fort Myers, we have water-covered roads. And here to the south in Bonita Shores, we have large boats blocking this road here on the way out to the beach. As workers continue to try and clear these access points, day 2 is now underway for downtown Fort Myers business owners cleaning up a very big mess. Bad would be an understatement when you ask Mike Mascari about the damage Hurricane Ian left behind.
I've been through everything. Andrew, Charlie, Wilma, Irma. This is catastrophic.
His American yacht sales store in Fort Myers is trashed. Piece by piece, he's picking up this week, but some things, the real important things, he says he'll never get back.
These are all the pictures I take of my clients over the years. Totally gone. So there's 37 years of my life right there.
At Hurricane Ian's height on Wednesday, Mascari's store was flooded with 4 feet of brackish water from the Caloosahatchee River, sending most of the insides of the store floating, while outside, $500,000 yachts crashed into the seawall, some up and over it into the streets.
To walk out there and see the marina just gone is kind of hard to believe. Here's one of my clients. You find your boat yet, Tim? Tim lost his boat. He's probably sank.
Not the conversation Mascari is used to having in his store, but there will be no normal conversations here for a while in a city that may take months to heal.
Absolute nightmare. And all you can do is pick up and start over again. That's what I'm doing.
And may never be quite the same place again. And back now out to the barrier islands, it might not be until Monday when the roads are cleared off and traffic both ways can be restored. Until then, the Coast Guard is continuing to run helicopter missions into Fort Myers Beach to not only drop off supplies, but also to get people out. On scene in Bonita Shores, Jason Lanning, Spectrum News.
The extent of the damage, Sally Ann, it's really hard to comprehend. I mean, just seeing those boats in the middle of the road there, and that's the least of it.
Oh, well, we've had ours too with everything with Sandy, so you could almost feel how difficult it must be for them, and it takes a long time to recover, maybe even beyond months, could take even years to get back, especially with the mindset of where you need to be to move forward. Now, for us, right now, we're looking at a lot of clouds as that rain moves up from the south, but it's bands of rain that we're expecting over the weekend as Ian will make landfall and then move inland and bring those bands toward us. Now you can see lots of clouds around already, but I do think we're going to end up getting that Yankees game in tonight against the Orioles. It'll be cloudy and in the low 60s. Today's high temperature only in the low 60s as well. We essentially have high pressure that's keeping this at bay. I'm going to go out wider so you could see this is the center of the storm. We're still watching it pound along the Carolina coast. Again, these are the bands of rain, and when do they arrive in our area? Well, you could see here on Futurecast, early Saturday morning, we do have some red returns, meaning some heavy downpours. This is a snapshot at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can see how it starts to move off to the east. We'll have times when it's not going to be raining later into the afternoon, and then maybe more rain returning on Sunday. I'll have more on this coming up.
Thank you, Sally Ann. A settlement decades in the making. Former public school teachers claim that they lost their jobs after facing discrimination in the classroom, but according to some of them, the recent installments are coming too little and too late. Higher rents are here. 1 million rent-stabilized apartment tenants will be paying more every month starting tomorrow. Hear why the Rent Guidelines Board says that the hike was needed. And a new film hits the big screens this weekend coming up. Sigourney Weaver talks about starring in The Good House.
If you have this, and you get this, you could end up with this. Unexpected out-of-pocket costs, which for those on Medicare or soon to be, is a good reason to take charge of your health care. So consider this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Why? Because Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. And what it doesn't pay for, like deductibles and copays, could really add up, even thousands of dollars a year. Medicare supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't, and making your out-of-pocket costs a lot more predictable. Call United Healthcare today and ask for your free decision guide. Learn more about plan options and rates to fit your needs. Now, if you like this, greater freedom, you'll love that Medicare supplement plans have no networks and no referrals needed. See any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S., as long as they accept Medicare patients. These types of plans also give you more flexibility when traveling in the U.S. Your plan goes with you, anywhere you go in the country. Even better, these are the only plans of their kind, endorsed by AARP. Call United Healthcare today for your free decision guide. So if you have this and want less out-of-pocket costs and more peace of mind, consider adding this, an AARP Medicare supplement plan. Take charge of your health care today. Just use this or this to call United Healthcare about an AARP Medicare supplement plan.
Correction Commissioner Louis Molina says that eliminating solitary confinement would create what he calls a state of anarchy at jails. He made those comments today on New York 1 after this week saw dueling rallies and a city council hearing over a proposed bill banning the practice, which opponents, though, say is inhumane and ineffective at making jails safer.
This bill, if it passed, would place our jails in a state of anarchy. And we've seen the outcome of bail reform in our city streets. This would replicate that in our city's jails, giving us little control to remove violent individuals after attacking another person in custody or a staff member.
According to Molina, the city doesn't use solitary confinement, but it uses a practice that he calls restrictive housing. And he says that the proposed legislation would restrict what his department can do with violent inmates, putting other inmates and correction officers, he says, at risk. The city is dishing out big bucks in a settlement with teachers who were fired for failing a state certification exam. Most of those teachers were black and Hispanic. A city ruled that the test was discriminatory, and they are now paying nearly $2 billion in back pay to all of those teachers who were impacted. Our education reporter, Jillian Jorgensen, spoke with one teacher who did not expect to ever see a cent from her settlement.
This was a Black History program. I made their bow ties, and I made it more festive. And those kids are grown now.
Ethel DeZoni has the memories of her teaching career meticulously organized behind plastic in binder after binder. But the time she spent as a full-time teacher in city public schools takes up fewer pages than she would have liked.
County Colored, PS 194. That's where I was terminated from.
Dizoni lost her job as a teacher at the Harlem Elementary School in the early 2000s because she failed a state certification exam used by the city. She went on to teach in private and charter schools, or in part-time positions assisting other teachers, or at after-school programs for less money with less stability.
I lost life, a precious commodity of my life teaching.
She wasn't alone. Black and Hispanic educators were disproportionately likely to fail the test. A group of them first sued over it in 1996. And in 2012, a judge ruled the exam was discriminatory. A special master began calculating what teachers like Dizoni would have earned if not for the test. The city ultimately stopped appealing those awards and began paying out last December. A law department spokesman said, "We believe the court rulings against the city were not grounded in law and unfairly held it liable for a test created and mandated by the state. However, we determined it was time to bring this decades-long case to a close and enter into an agreement for scheduled payouts." The class action suit now includes 4,700 teachers. According to the Wall Street Journal, more than $800 million has been awarded so far, and that will grow. The city has set aside $1.8 billion to pay all the teachers who have sued. Dizoni has begun receiving installments of a six-figure settlement, but it brings her little comfort.
The money doesn't mean anything at age 77. What am I going to do with money now? I have the things I need.
She wants something else. The opportunity to teach again without having to take another test.
They cheated. I didn't. So I don't think I should have to worry about, did I take a test? I need them to do the right things besides the monetary value. Give me my certification.
She's made that request in letters to the city. Despite not hearing back and the payout, she still plans to work at an after-school program.
I feel that I have something to offer, the truth.
And Jillian joins me now to talk about this. What an amazing woman. It seems like she would add so much value still being in a classroom.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you look at the fact that she has all of those, moments from her teaching career preserved, and showed me so many pictures of her classroom, showed me assignments that students had completed. And, she says she feels she was robbed of her career, but that students were also robbed of an opportunity to have a teacher from their neighborhood, from the same cultural background as them. She lives right nearby the school where she was teaching in Harlem, and she really feels like she could have given a lot to those students.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's so much value in that alone that you described that you can't really quantify. What was it on this test specifically that made it such a barrier for so many people to pass?
Yeah, it was called the Language Arts and Science test, and what they found during the trial was that it didn't really predict whether you'd be a good teacher. It didn't really measure what classroom teachers do every day in their job. In fact, the attorney for the plaintiffs told me the only thing it could really reliably predict was whether you were Black or Hispanic. That was the only real correlation, that those teachers were failing this test at a disproportionate rate to their peers. And, that's what ultimately prompted a judge to rule that test discriminatory in 2012 after many years of a legal battle and throw it out.
Wow, what a story. I mean, I guess it must be some solace for her to know at least that she was ultimately vindicated, she and the other teachers.
Yeah, I think so.
Jillian, thank you. All right, taking a look outside right now, clouds are filling the skies. No rain yet. Temperatures will stay in the chilly low to mid-60s, and then the rain arrives overnight. Periods of rain expected to be heavy at times Saturday, some scattered showers on Sunday, and then it stays unsettled as the work week gets underway, and below normal temperatures all week long. And stay with us because just ahead, declines across the board for Facebook. Why stocks and platform users are plummeting. Also later, a drug addict given one last chance to prove to the court, his family, and himself that he has finally kicked his habit. That story is coming up on News All Day.
Off Topic on Politics, a weekly podcast that digs into the latest New York City political news and stories. Available now on the Spectrum News app.
We listen to what's happening on the streets of New York. That's what New York 1 is all about. And that's what makes us unique after 30 years. And I must say, I am proud to be part of that experience.
Moving forward starts with getting answers about where we are. What New Yorkers want to know, Inside City Hall is here to find out. And we do it every weeknight at 7 and 11 here on New York 1, exclusively on Spectrum.
Have you or anyone you know served or lived at Camp Lejeune? Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune's water systems may have been infected and contaminated by chloride due to fuel leaks on the property before 1987. If you drank the water or bathed in it or had any water contact while at Camp Lejeune and have been diagnosed with cancer or Parkinson's disease, you may be entitled to compensation. As a Marine who was stationed at Camp Lejeune for 4 years, this hits close to home. At Morgan & Morgan, we're fighting for the families affected by this to try to get them the compensation they deserve. So if you've been stationed or visited Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune before 1987 and have cancer or Parkinson's, call us today or visit CampLejeuneInjury.com. Morgan & Morgan.
Call 800-602-7700. 800-602-7700. That's 800-602-7700. Call now.
When you have NHL Center Ice, you're in control of what games you watch. With up to 40 out-of-market games a week, you can follow your favorite teams and stars of the NHL, no matter where you live. Never miss a Matthews goal, a Makar check, a McDavid rush, or a Markstrom save, all from the best seat in your house. NHL Center Ice, the game lives where you do. Get NHL Center Ice today. Go to channel 2495 or visit spectrum.net/hockey.
And welcome back to News All Day. The city's tenants in 1 million rent-stabilized apartments will be paying more every month if they renew their leases. That starts tomorrow. In June, the Rent Guidelines Board voted to hike one-year lease renewals by 3.25%. That is the highest hike in nearly a decade. Two-year lease renewals going up 5%. The board says this year's increases will help building owners who have seen their costs go up by more than 4%, driven by a huge increase in fuel costs and insurance rates.
Well, it's been a horrible week for stocks. To wrap up what's been a horrible month, the major benchmarks are on pace to close out their sixth losing week out of 7. Investors are spooked by inflationary worries. To make matters worse, the Federal Reserve's preferred gauge on monitoring inflation, PCE, or the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, showed that inflation rose 0.6% in August. That was more than the 0.5% estimate. And after coming in flat in July, it's another indicator that despite the Fed's best efforts, inflation has remained persistent. Year over year, PCE is up 4.9%. That's up from 4.7% the previous month. The central bank likes looking at PCE as a broad indicator of where prices are heading. And more bad news from Meta after CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced a hiring freeze yesterday. Today, the stock is trading at its lowest level since early 2019. It's lost about 2/3 of its value since peaking in September of 2021, when it had a market cap of $1 trillion and is one of the worst performers in the S&P 500 this year. Adding to its woes, Facebook is losing users and advertisers are reducing their spending on the platform, while the company is touting the metaverse. It accounts for near zero of its near-term revenue. And Phil Collins and his former Genesis bandmates, Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks, have agreed to sell their publishing copyrights to Concord Music Group in a deal valued at upward of $300 million. The Wall Street Journal first reported the news. The deal includes the solo work of all 3 artists, notably Collins with multiple hit songs. Catalogs of Peter Gabriel and other former Genesis bandmates were not included in the deal. And that is Money on One. I'm Karina Mitchell.
As we celebrate New York One's 30th anniversary, we are taking a look back at another monumental event that we covered here in the city. Louis Dodley has more.
Today we bring you back to August 10th,
2021.
The best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing.
Andrew Cuomo announces he will resign as governor of New York State after 10 years in office.
You want to have reckless disregard for your life? It's not about your life.
His daily briefings became must-see TV in New York and across the country as the city became the epicenter of the pandemic. But in December of 2020, a former aide accused Cuomo of sexual harassment. More accusations followed.
The independent investigation has concluded that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women.
Cuomo's resignation led the way for Kathy Hochul to become the first woman governor in New York history.
Errol?
This portion of the news is sponsored by Food Bank for New York City. One mission, 5 boroughs, feed all.
When a clean, shiny truck pulls up in front of your house, everyone starts clapping because everyone is happy. Yeah. And that's why they all start dancing. Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We make junk disappear. All you have to do is point.
Dear gas prices, Toyota's hybrid lineup says, go take a hike. Because we bring efficiency with power and savings with style. Think you can stand in our way? We got this. Toyota Hybrids.
Powerful efficiency makes Toyota the #1 retail brand for electrified vehicles 22 years in a row. Shop online and visit your Toyota dealer today. Toyota, let's go places.
Hi, it's me again. Listen to this. Medicare Part C plans with extra benefits like getting money added back to your Social Security check every month may now be available to you in your zip code. Make sure you're not missing out. It's simple. 1, call the number on your screen. 2, they'll look up your zip code and see if you're eligible. 3, they'll check for plans with extra benefits like prescriptions, dental coverage, and the benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every single month. Call now.
I called to get everything I deserve.
I called to check my zip code for a plan with the benefit that adds money back to my Social Security check.
I called to check my zip code.
Check your zip code. It could be dynamite. Call now.
Call 1-800-381-9100. That's 1-800-381-9100 now.
It's all code. Welcome back to News All Day. Let's get straight to Anthony for the latest on some developing stories. Anthony.
Monica, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Here's what we're following. Police are working to figure out who covered the Russian consulate in Manhattan with red spray paint.
Oh,
it happened
really?
around 1:30 this morning on East
The
191st
horrific
Street.
murder
The NYPD
of
says
an
it's being
FDNY
investigated
lieutenant
as a possible
by
bias
someone you
incident.
refuse to
Earlier
name
today, Russian
is
President
the top
Vladimir
story
Putin
12
declared that
hours
4
after it
provinces of
happened?
Ukraine will become Russian territory based on referendums that
Somebody's
took place
great
this
work
week.
of art
The U.S. calls
is the
those
leading
referendums
story.
a
Like,
sham.
this is so
In
mysterious.
other news, police have arrested a man they say stole $100,000 from a Bronx post office. Ellerin Yisrael
Listen to the
faces
name.
robbery and gun charges. Authorities
look
say
at the
he hit an
complexion.
employee in the head with a gun and then forced her to open a safe inside the building. This happened at the Castle Hill Avenue location back
They
on
try
September
so
6th.
hard
Yisrael is expected to appear
to
in
not
federal
show
court later
people
today.
of color
And
committing
search and
crimes
rescue efforts
when
are
it's
continuing
forced all
today
their-
after Hurricane Ian left a path
They
of
don't
destruction
emphasize
throughout
with any
Florida.
verbal
More than
detail.
20 people have been reported dead. That number is
As if, like,
expected
nobody's
to
gonna
grow.
notice. And if you
Governor
talk
Ron
about it,
DeSantis
that
says
makes
just
you
under 2
racist
million
if you try to
customers
actually
remain without power. The
determine
storm is
patterns.
expected to make landfall in South Carolina
They've
this
created
afternoon.
this
I'm Anthony Pascal. That's a
tool
look
to
at some of
shut
the day's
people
developing stories.
Right.
with accusations of racism.
Anthony, thank you. More than 13,000 migrants have arrived in the city in recent weeks. Now the pressure is on to find shelter and resources for them. The city has already announced a short-term facility in Orchard Beach, but there are also calls for more long-term solutions. Our Kelly Mena is at City Hall, where there's a hearing today about the resources that are being offered to help house the migrants and give them services. Kelly, what is going on?
Hello, Annika. That's right. City council members were on the steps of City Hall just a moment ago saying they will be demanding answers from City Hall and the Adams administration when it comes to these tents they have planned for Orchard Beach. Today, City council member Shahana Hanif said that she'll be demanding these answers as questions remain about how this tent is going to meet the city's right to shelter law.
This pitch was sold as a state-of-the-art facility with food, beds, and a warm New York City welcome. But there is nothing state-of-the-art about a refugee camp built outdoors in a flood zone in October.
Now, City Council members charged that the Adams administration made an executive decision when it came to creating these relief centers without talking to any other council members or even the chair of the immigration committee. They say that the contractor that will be building these sites has some connections to building the wall on the southern border, and that is a concern when it comes to these relief centers.
We demand answers as to why our city would do any business with a company that has made profit off of xenophobia and keeping migrants out.
Council members say that these relief centers are not meeting the city's right to shelter law and that other sites should have been chosen. City Council member Catalina Cruz mentioned that college dorms could potentially be a possibility, that there's also hotels that aren't being used right now that the city could use, and that more long-term areas should be looked at other than creating these short-term, kind of quickly made tent cities. Back to you, Annika.
Kelly, thank you. I appreciate that update from City Hall. We are going to talk about that in the political buzz coming up with Errol Lewis right now in just a minute, because there are so many options on the table for where to house the many, many migrants who have come to the city in recent weeks. But we're going to start by talking about the gubernatorial election. We're fewer than 40 days away from Election Day, Errol, and the race for governor is heating up. Let's talk about the latest developments and the endorsements that have come in recently. Lee Zeldin was endorsed by the Sergeants Benevolent Association, and then we have Governor Hochul with the support of the PBA, the Police Benevolent Association. Are those significant? Do they effectively cancel each other out because they're both coming from law enforcement?
It's an interesting question, Annika. What happens is there are two parts to an endorsement, really three. The first is whether or not the people in that union are going to actually get out and work for you. Are they going to go out and do volunteer shifts and organize their members to come out for you? The second is whether or not they're going to appeal to their own members. Because, if you start including retired members, it can actually be thousands and thousands of people, and those are valuable votes. And then the third, which I think is what really matters here, is sort of the branding. If you can say, oh, I'm endorsed by law enforcement, and you can point to a union endorsement, that really helps the candidate. That's especially important for Lee Zeldin. It's also important for Governor Hochul to say, well, it's not like all of law enforcement is going in a different direction. I've got a couple of law enforcement unions myself. So that's what the chase is all about. That's really, whether or not any of these really pan out and mean anything, it really remains to be seen. But on the branding front, I think they're really pretty much at parity.
And so there was a recent poll that just came out this week from Siena College showing Hochul has a double-digit lead. Do you see a path forward, a realistic path forward for Zeldin to actually win this race? Hasn't happened to a Republican since George Pataki in '94.
He's doing everything
Sure.
in his
Well, the
power
last
to make
victory
sure it
was
doesn't
Pataki's
happen.
third, which is in 2002. But look,
I
there
don't
is a
even
path to
like Lee
victory. There's
Zeldin,
always
but
a
I
path to victory.
see exactly what's going
The
on.
reality is, if Lee Zeldin overperforms in the suburbs, and he's from the suburbs, especially Long Island and Suffolk County and Nassau County, if they turn out in big numbers, that gives them more of a chance.
To make
If
sure
New Yorkers stay home for whatever reason,
that gives them a big chance. There are concerns that parts of the Democratic base are not necessarily enthused about the upcoming election, and they may stay home in November. That gives Lee Zeldin more of a chance. And then there's this possibility that with the message that he's been pounding home about crime, all of the horrific news that we've been reporting all day, day after day, it might persuade a lot of people that it's time to go in a different direction. That's what Lee Zeldin is counting on. And if he can get 30 to 40% of the vote here in New York City, he absolutely has a chance of winning.
Will be very interesting to see, especially how that debate goes as well. I wanted, while I have you, talk about what Kelly was reporting from City Hall, where basically the rallies are taking place over the migrants who have been bused here. Now 13,000 or more than 13,000 people. There was a report that I was just reading on the New York Post that says that the mayor is now considering leasing a Norwegian cruise line ship to house some of the migrants and to process them and docking it on Staten Island. Kelly mentioned a number of other things that have been proposed, from hotels to other facilities that might be vacant, because clearly the current solution is not a long-term solution. What path forward does the mayor have to be successful with dealing with this issue?
Well, we're gonna find out what kind of options he has, Annika, but they are not as broad as people might think. And so the news that the Post is reporting that the administration is at least considering leasing some cruise ships, that's great. The talk about this tent up in the Bronx is also great. But one thing we can never forget is that the right to shelter in New York is pursuant to a court decree, and the words of that court decree are very detailed and very specific. How much square footage somebody has to have in the cot that they're sleeping on, how much free space they have to have. And it's not clear at all that a tent city in the Bronx, or frankly a cruise ship, would meet with those legal requirements. And so,
And what happens if they don't
the
get it?
administration, of course, is in a very tough
Will they
place. They
storm
did
the
not expect to
Capitol?
have thousands of people arriving all of a sudden.
What if there's no money to pay
doesn't-
for it?
It doesn't change the
What if
legal
there's
obligation.
no one that
And
gives
I
a
think
shit
they're
to
gonna have
build
to
it?
really work this out and figure out
What's
how
going
to
to happen is
create safe,
all of
decent,
this manipulation is going to blow up in NY1's face. But by that time, it'll be too late. There'll be nothing. I mean, the pieces to be picked up will be so tiny. The chaos is guaranteed. Like, I don't want to say another 100 years, but like, that's how serious it is. And I think they know this.
Shelter underneath the tent doesn't necessarily match that. And
This
certainly a
is
cruise ship
how
might not either. So
you invade
they're
another
in
country in
a tough
the 21st
place.
century.
They're understandably, I think, trying to scramble to make the best of a very tough
And
situation.
obviously these people,
But the council members
they
are
don't
not
even
going to be
speak
the first
Chinese.
to
They're
complain about this. There'll be
go-betweens
lawyers that get involved.
that
and
give people
ultimately the decision
ultimatums.
may
They
end in
use them
court.
as tools,
Yeah, it
as
seems
useful
that it's headed
idiots.
that way.
And they're
Erin,
attractive
as
and
always, thank you
intelligent,
so
and
much. And just a
that's
reminder,
how
you
it
can hear more
works.
from
But
Erin
they're
and
also
the political team
compromised
on Inside City
and
Hall
mediocre.
every weeknight at
And they
7
take the
p.m.
place of people that are
Heading over to
actually
Sally Ann with the
leaders,
And this
born
forecast
leaders.
is a cloudy one for today, but eventually the clouds will bring rain, just not during the evening rush. It's chilly out there. I mean, it feels like it with temperatures that are in the low 60s, and a little bit of a breeze makes it feel like the upper 50s in most areas. How much rain will we see today? Well, none through the afternoon. After midnight, we could pick up just a small bit of rain, but the real lion's share comes on Saturday morning. You can see here that the rain starts off as light with these green showers pulling in. It is this yellow and
Radiating down your leg and lower. As much documentation as possible will help to make sure that you get the claim that you need. And share.
to the east by that time. Now, not all the computer models are in agreement on the timing of it, and it is tropical moisture. With that, we've learned our lesson, and we keep a careful eye. Of course, we'll keep you updated. In the meantime, we go in through the afternoon seeing just mostly cloudy conditions, and Sunday morning we start off with some scattered showers, and then maybe get another slug of some rain showers later on in the day. So we are unstable Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as well, so you want to have that umbrella nearby as we...
You have to read between the lines. And keep in mind that these people don't even know they're being used as tools. The difference between a tool might be, you know, it's like, oh wow, sure, I'd love that job. And the money's really good. There are 1,000 people that are more qualified and, for God-given reasons, you know, more worthy of influencing people's minds on whatever level, whether it's the weather, or whether it's who chooses the stories.
Annika, because temperatures in the low 60s. A little chilly for me.
Oh, yeah. I brought out the jacket this morning. Thank you, Sally Ann.
You're welcome.
She turns to the audience and says, "Let me tell you what's really going on."
Breaking the fourth wall, how Sigourney Weaver is luring in audiences in her new film, The Good House, and why she loved this role. That's coming up. But first, a love of baseball and a bit of nostalgia. We'll introduce you to a man who is used.
Why she loves this role. Oh, is it because she gets to live in balmy Westchester and walk out onto her porch, turned into a sound set, and do the $1 million life thing with scenery? Give me a break. 30 years ago, I'm writing letters to Linda Puglisi, is that her name? Saying, look, here's a great way we could make money. 35 years ago. I don't know, maybe it was 30 years ago, so like 32 years, I don't know. But, no. 94 I wrote that letter. I think just before Woodstock. Anyway. And then she gets all this credit for like, she's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I've always lived my life like, here's another good idea. 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 And just imagine me saying that 10 million times. And it's like, okay, run with it. Go. Yay. See, I was right. But no one ever comes back to say, oh my God, how did you get left in that dumpster? Like trash. Cleaning up urine from the immigrants we want to romanticize coming in by the thousands when there's nowhere to live anymore for anyone that already lives here? No one can afford anything if you can find anything? Why is it so hard for both sides to just say, there's a certain status quo for a long time that is paid a third of their paycheck towards this group, this community, organization of stability that everyone benefits from, and that's the trade-off. That's why you can take a third of everything that I've accumulated. Every individual has accumulated to share. I mean, actually for themselves, but then has to share a third of it. It's practically half of it, so that it's understood that we need, fire trucks to put out the fires. And then you're gonna use that to go feed the world. Okay. Have wars that no one understands across the world, and then bring it all back here.
And this month
and what
we
is
have been
that
reporting about stories of addiction and recovery here on
immigration
News All Day.
specialist
And
going to
also
do if she doesn't get her way? Are they going to storm the Capitol?
Who's overdosing, the dangers of fentanyl, as
And
well
you
as
realize the only reason
stories
the Trump
of
people
recovery.
stormed the Capitol
Anthony
was
Pascal
because
has one more story. This is about
of
a
the
man
summer of
who
hell,
knows that this might
where
be his last
they turned it into a war zone, and that freaked everybody out. That was the initial seed. And there's plenty of evidence. Shut the fuck up. There's plenty of evidence that this was deliberate.
Of course, we had a ceremony today. We had an official signing.
What's the word? Pre-planned by design.
After a dog attack left him with 496 staples in his head.
Oh my God. Look at this news. I mean, okay, what tragic story with as much graphic content can we fill the air with so that we don't talk about the Baltic Sea is now all gasoline and no one's talking about cleaning it up? How American. How American of everybody. And that was why I thought I loved Obama, because he was all on top of the Gulf of Mexico, the Horizons bill. And I think I was actually proud. Yeah, I mean, I felt a great sense of American pride. I mean, I wouldn't go that far because you don't have to put words to it, but it's just like, yes, this is what we do. This is why we're leaders in the world. You're sending a message that this is taking responsibility. Figure it out honestly later, which never happens. But that's not one entity's fault or one person's fault. That's how people are. And that's why this is so dangerous, because nobody is trustworthy. And the number of people that truly would lay down their lives for the greater good is like so small. Why bother? And that was a sad laugh, because I don't know what the answer is, but all I know is the conversation is all we have left. And I suppose the only way to maintain that is to practice babbling with purpose.
I just want to see him be happy, that's all.
Look at this story is still on. And the Baltic Sea is now gasoline.
You see it in the friends. You won't see it in your own.
Notice, no, it's like you. This is you. Listen, I've lived this, so let me tell you what the answer is. And they find this. I don't want to say stupidest people, but it's like it's not their fault. The cameras make them think, oh, I can turn my pain into lemonade.
Probation and treatment while living at home with his parents on Staten Island. As is the case for many addicts, Tim's recovery includes group therapy and a drug that reduces craving.
And if this is really the majority of the population, like what they want to hear or need to hear, God forbid, we're fucked.
His way back to the sport he loves, playing in a recreational league near his house.
He's starting to act human again. So
it's like, oh, look at the nice pictures of a baseball barbecue Sunday. And then I wish I could edit together that clip of the guy that was talking to Vice News producers and then ends up sending a dick pic to people he was like, helping guide through their problems.
And Anthony joins me now to talk a little bit more about this. He says it's that simple, but clearly it has not, Anthony, been a simple journey. And his father really talked about how he missed signs of his son's drug use. What can others learn from that?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that a lot of parents can really understand. He was blinded by the love for his son. Even when his son was stealing from him, he didn't want to admit that his son had a problem. But eventually it manifested.
So kids, the message is go ahead and steal from whatever, because the people will forgive you if you're nice later, if you have the chance.
That people can look out for if they're stealing money like he was, if they're giving up other activities to do drugs.
Isn't that so nice of the news people to help everyone with their personal psychological problems? Wow, they've got so much time on their hands.
Pay attention to. Anthony, thank you. And I guess it's also worth pointing out that this cuts across demographics.
The Baltic Sea is gasoline.
Problem. Anthony, thank you. All right, stay with us. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
If you have this, and you get this, you could end up with this. Unexpected out-of-pocket costs, which for those on Medicare or soon to be, is a good reason to take charge of your health care. So consider this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Why? Because Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. And what it doesn't pay for, like deductibles and copays, could really add up, even thousands of dollars a year. Medicare supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't, and making your out-of-pocket costs a lot more predictable. Call United Healthcare today and ask for your free decision guide. Learn more about plan options and rates to fit your needs. Now, if you like this, greater freedom, you'll love that Medicare supplement plans have no networks and no referrals needed. See any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S., as long as they accept Medicare patients. These types of plans also give you more flexibility when traveling in the U.S. Your plan goes with you, anywhere you go in the country. Even better, These are the only plans of their kind.
Notice these commercials are exactly like the pharma commercials.
Call United Healthcare
Are very similar anyway. The music, the banners.
So if you have this,
even the, whether it's United Health or AARP, it's always the same colors, blue, white, red.
An AARP Medicare supplement plan.
Without being too red, white, and blue.
Just use this or this.
See, that was, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, this is United Health.
Medicare supplement plan.
So it's like they rescued United Health. It's like names rescuing each other. Just like Phil Collins having to sell $300 million because he needed, 150 people to get $2 million.
It is time for our picture of the day. Gorgeous sunset.
And it seems like, so what? There's songs, but what people will use to manipulate and create propaganda to confirm their message with these familiar songs.
It's not going to be quite so beautiful, Sally. Well, sometimes when it's cloudy, you do get a nice sun.
It's a really sophisticated science. And because the average person doesn't have time to think about, to notice, let alone think about the implications of things that go on this level. And sadly, if enough people just, could get it straight in their heads that it goes on, at least, it's not you have to put energy into analyzing anything, but just to be able to keep an open mind, like a truly open mind, and realize nothing is what it seems. Even when people sincerely seem to be trying to convey a message of, some great humanitarian good, that doesn't mean it's not a front for something, they're not telling you the whole story. And just like that, the teacher that got fired, I don't know if it's on this one, she failed the fucking test. So, and I think she asked later, like, what were the details of that? And she failed the freaking test. And then someone decided, I think relatively recently, that the test was racist. And so therefore she needs, here it is, she needs to win this, $250,000 or more. Or they said 6 figures, I don't know what that means exactly. But the point is, and then she's like, I don't want the money. It's like, is that what the question on the test was? Are you an idiot?
Is their sweetest to date.
Actress Sigourney Weaver is busier than ever. The 72-year-old stars in the first of 4 films, still
New
to be
Rochelle.
released this year. This one called The Good House. Weaver stars as Hildy Good, an accomplished woman who finds her world crumbling away.
I was a tough broker on the North Shore, and if everything had gone according to plan, I'd be fine. That's not what happened. Hildy, would you like to have a seat? Well, if we're really going to do this, I need a drink. Oh my God. Kidding. She's lost her marriage. She's been sent to rehab. She's losing her business. And she turns to the audience and says, let me tell you what's really going on. And she breaks that fourth wall and takes us into her confidence.
Why aren't there more movies made for adults about adults?
Wow. Exactly what I think. And
because China makes the movies
to tell a story of
now.
A woman my age, from her point of view, who's this funny, was just like, seeing a unicorn in the forest.
What was it about this woman that grabbed you?
I think I could really relate to the fact that, Hildy has a public face of someone who doesn't need help, of someone who's a success. Her life has slipped away from her. And I was very interested in that slippage, and I was very interested in her relationship to alcohol, and at what point it stops being her best friend and becomes, her enemy.
The film reunites Weaver with longtime friend and co-star Kevin Kline. The two previously worked together on Dave in 1993 and The Ice Storm in 1997. The Good House is their first collaboration in 25 years.
There was a time in my life I was quite in love with Frankie Getchell.
Give me the button.
You would have been too. All my friends were.
What's it like working with him?
He is a dreamboat. Having Kevin there for the love scene, the love story is probably our sweetest love story, our most real love story. Those scenes were just a joy to do. our chemistry, whatever you want to call it, our from knowing each other forever, as long as Hildy and Frank have known each other, is just part of the effervescence of the movie.
The Good House is playing in theaters. George Whipple, New York 1.
Something fun to do this weekend if you don't have plans yet. And that'll do it for us this Friday. Enjoy this final day of September and have a great weekend.
Green Day was always so annoying.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Cars for Kids. Donate today and your car can be picked up tomorrow. Go to carsforkids.org today.
Now more than ever, saving matters, especially on style. With Burlington's deals that wow, you get more of the fashions you want and the savings you need. Deals that wow. Spend less, get more. You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. Wow.
The jurors sense that we are a father and son trial team.
And not only is he a great father and a good friend, but he's an amazing lawyer.
The whole secret in personal injury litigation is to make the jury want to find in your favor.
That's what we bring as a family firm. We treat people as if they are part of our family. We don't know how to do it any differently.
We've had jurors speak to us afterwards saying, what a great team you guys are.
For more information and a free consultation, visit SmileyLaw.com.
Attention timeshare owners. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. You can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently. Call the number on your screen today.
The Granite Stone Blue 12-piece set, not for $500, $400, or even $300, but for the factory direct price of just 5 easy payments of $49.95. And for everyone who orders today, we're going to drop one payment. You get it all for just 4 easy payments of $49.95. Granite Stone.
Are you ready to make junk disappear?
I am so looking forward to this. We make junk disappear. All you have to do is point. When our clean shiny truck pulls up in front of your house, call 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We'll be there before you hang up the phone.
How do customers describe shopping at Burlington?
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Burlington has incredible deals on amazing brands and finds. Wow. You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. Wow.
When the park wasn't full of homeless
This is the
people.
Spectrum News New York 1 Community Calendar featuring upcoming events from around the 5 boroughs. It's 1 o'clock. 1-800-GOT-JUNK for home or office junk removal. We make junk disappear.
A bunting ceremony today at EMS Station 49 in Astoria in honor of Allison Russo Elling.
No
The
background
paramedic
on the
stabbed
guy
to
that
death
killed
yesterday
her, not even a
afternoon.
name.
This morning, officials announced murder charges against her alleged attacker.
Alleged.
Hurricane Ian is now bearing down on South Carolina after regaining strength over the Atlantic. The storm's effects are expected to be felt all the way up the East Coast. And in Florida, search and recovery efforts are underway as the death toll continues to rise. Outside of City Hall, there are rallies today over the shelter crisis as more migrants from the southern border await housing. A relief shelter is under construction in the Bronx. And we go behind the scenes of The Good House and hear from the star
And they'll play the same stories, maybe change it up a little bit over and over. I mean, they'll play it over and over again, all day and even through the weekend. At least half of these stories will be repeated over again with this freshness, like, oh.
Good afternoon,
And she was also a 911 responder, first responder.
Thanks so much for joining us. Let's start off by taking a quick look at the forecast, and it is a great fall day temperature-wise, peaking in the mid-60s. We do have some cloud cover moving through this afternoon. Showers should start in the early hours of tomorrow. We will get a full update from meteorologist Sally Ann Mosey in just a bit. But first, Anthony Pascal is here with a look at some of the afternoon's developing stories.
Annika, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Here's what's happening. The NYPD is investigating after police shot a man who was suspected of being involved in a double shooting.
Even
police
after
first responded to a shooting on Kosciuszko
the horrific
Broadway
death of the
found
DNY lieutenant,
two men with gunshot wounds
the stories have this slant where they're concerned that the police might have shot another black man who didn't deserve it.
Chased another man who they thought was involved and shot him. No gun was recovered from him. All three victims.
And how will he be taken care of when they arrest him and go to Rikers Island?
The city council has passed plans for a new affordable housing project in Queens. Hallett's North will bring nearly 1,400 units, including 335 affordable homes, to the area of 26th Avenue.
So the bed bugs can be moved from one
retail space.
Building to another. Start fresh.
Expected to be completed by 2028.
Block the view.
Mayor Adams calls this a
destroy what little is left of any wildlife.
When it comes to tackling
Birds,
the city's
plants,
affordable housing crisis.
vitamin D.
And Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson formally made her first appearance on the Supreme Court bench in a courtroom ceremony today. This happened ahead of the start of the High Court's new term on Monday. The ceremony included the reading of the proclamation appointing Jackson to the court. She also repeated the oath she took when she joined the court in June after Justice Stephen Breyer retired. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris attended the ceremony. I'm Anthony Pascal. That's a look at some of the day's top stories.
A man has been charged with murder in connection to the fatal stabbing of an FDNY EMT in what officials described as an unprovoked attack. Lieutenant Allison Russo-Elling, a 25-year veteran of the fire department, was on duty and getting food about half a block from her station in Astoria when she was attacked. Peter Zizopoulos is accused of stabbing her multiple times before running into his home on 41st Street near 20th Avenue and then barricading himself inside. Police say Zizopoulos may have a history of schizophrenia. The NYPD's hostage negotiating team eventually convinced him to come out, and he was taken into custody. He now faces charges of murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Mayor Adams spoke from the hospital shortly after Lieutenant Russo-Elling was pronounced dead.
All of our first responders, they are always on call. She was there for a reason, and no matter
I would say absolutely
what the
nothing
reason was, she
but
should not
eating
have
lunch
been murdered in this fashion. She
because
was on duty,
you're allowed
doing her job, saving
to have
the
a
people
break
of the city of New York.
without being murdered.
Dozens of Russo-Elling's colleagues lined up last night to salute her as her body was transferred from Mount Sinai in Queens. She had been a longtime member of the department, a first responder, in fact, during the September 11th attacks.
In fact,
at multiple stations,
in case you haven't heard that a million times, which I mean, I'm glad they're saying it, but it's like acting. There are ways to say that and just be real about it.
On her life of service to the city of New York.
Is this his son?
Hi, Annika. A couple hundred people showed up to the bunting ceremony to pay their respects for Allison Russo-Elling. People called her the mother hen. It was a very emotional day here, but we learned she is much more than a lieutenant. She leaves behind her mother and a daughter. Family, friends, and peers gathered outside Station 49 in Queens on Friday to remember 61-year-old Allison Russo-Elling.
She made sure that we were all okay.
On Thursday, Russo-Elling was stabbed to death a block away from her station.
And this event has cut deep into our souls and has rippled to the first responder communities across the nation. We are heartbroken. And we are very angry.
This could be the kind of thing where a hostile foreign enemy can hire some schizophrenic and just like a drone run them to do this most, you know, it's on this level. Her death feels like it's on this level.
aiding in the rescue and recovery
And that's why you
efforts
have to
at the
wonder
World Trade Center. It was in 2016 when she became a
if
lieutenant.
she was
Over the span of
an
her career, she
assassination,
was cited multiple times for her
crucifixion,
bravery
really.
and life-saving work. She even worked the Dignitary Protection Unit and was
She was so
assigned to Vice
beautiful.
President Mike Pence on a visit. Her longtime friend Anthony Almagera says she was planning to retire at the beginning of the year.
Allison had to continue to work because she did not make enough money to be able to retire when she wanted to. She was 61 years old, still responding to 911 calls.
Almagera is also the vice president of Local 3621 EMS Officers Union. He says when she wasn't working in the city, she volunteered in Long Island where she lived as a paramedic. Rousseau Elling would have celebrated 30 years of volunteer work in November.
She loved being a paramedic that much. She loved helping people that much. She wore her heart on her sleeve, would give you the shirt off her back, and she was there for me at a time that I was at my most vulnerable. She put her arm around me and said everything was going to be okay. Unfortunately, I didn't have that capability yesterday.
A job dedicated to serving people, Allison deserved to have a long, healthy retirement. She didn't deserve this.
Allison Rousseau was an amazing woman. She was a mother. She was a friend. She was a daughter. She was a civil servant who dedicated her life to caring for the people of this city.
Also, Governor Hochul has ordered flags to remain at half staff until after the lieutenant's funeral. Annika.
And we will wait for details on that as they become available. Lewis Finley, such a devastating story. Thank you for that report from Astoria. Moving on, an emergency declaration is in place for South Carolina as Hurricane Ian bears toward that state now.